Conor Benn attacks Duke McKenzie with his hands all up in his face and basically threatening him with all sort of things. Have a look at this clip and we'll dissect this further.
You understand? What do you mean, what facts? What facts? What, I had a court case and I could have gone prison? What facts? That's what you said. So listen, before you start talking shit, did I say you had a court case?
So let me get this straight. Conor Benn, in his 20s, pulls up on an old ex-fighter in Duke McKenzie, someone that is 62 years old, someone that is a 3-weight world champion. Conor Benn pulls up on him, puts his hands in his face, threatened to sue him, threatened to do this and that. That is a disgraceful behavior. That is an idiotic behavior. So Conor Benn feels like he's this big guy. He feels like he can approach an older fighter and basically threaten him and show that he's some macho sort of guy. That is deplorable behavior. Since when in boxing can people not have their opinions? Duke McKenzie is a pundit. He's on radio, he's on TV. He's going to have his opinion. Boxing is all about opinions. I analyze boxing. I have got a channel on YouTube. I am a paying fan that pays to watch boxing. I have every right to have my opinion. Everybody have their right to have their opinion. And Conor Benn cannot get into people's faces and threaten them because they had an opinion. That is just unacceptable. And also, that is an ex-fighter. There's so many people that have had so much to say about Conor Benn failing drug tests, and all sort of things. And I've not seen Conor Benn pull up on anyone but Duke McKenzie. Now, what did Duke McKenzie say about Conor Benn for him to threaten him with all these gun fingers and all these things that he's doing? Duke McKenzie basically said that, he talked about Conor Benn's failed drugs test, which everyone did. Simon Jordan, the whole of TalkSport had their say about this. The whole of boxing actually had their say about all of this. It was public news. Everybody said something about Conor Benn failing a drugs test, right? And also Duke McKenzie said that it will be difficult for Conor Benn to move down in weight because he moved up to 160 to fight Chris Eubank Jr., which is going to be difficult for him to come down in weight. And he also said that the, good fighters at the lower weight division, such as Boots Ennis, will be easier for them to beat Conor Benn because Conor Benn is not on that level. That is not a dig at Conor Benn. That is just fact. Boots Ennis is a much better fighter than Conor Benn. If you put Boots Ennis right now in the ring with Conor Benn, I expect Boots Ennis to stop Conor Benn in a devastating fashion. And Duke McKenzie just had his opinion. And that's it. But for Conor Benn to approach people in person and threaten them and put his hands in your face is just a disgraceful behavior. And it showed that he's just insecure in himself. And, one thing that really, it doesn't surprise me, but it just, sometimes I'm taken aback with fighters is they show this macho sort of, bravado and personality, but they can't take criticism. If you're a fighter, if you step in the ring, which you're brave to do, by the way, because stepping in the ring is a really serious thing. And any fighter that steps in the ring deserves some respect. But if you step in the ring and you're in the public domain, you should be, expecting people to criticize the things that you do, because that is part of the game. Even me here on YouTube, I get people coming to my comment section and criticize me for things I've said. And I'm just sharing my opinion. I'm just sharing my knowledge, the things I've learned, my passion for boxing. I'm sharing that. And I get people come here and say things about me, and I don't really take it seriously because I know I'm in the public domain and it's part of the game. So why would a man in his 20s pull up on an older ex-fighter, an ex-champion, someone that has done incredible things in boxing, and threaten him because he's said or he's had his opinion about him and about his fight and about the things that he's doing in boxing? What kind of behavior is that? What's next? Conor Benn is going to pull up on, YouTube boxing analysts like myself or other, YouTubers. What is he going to do? He's going to pull up on them and threaten them to beat them up and sue them and do this because they had an opinion. Since when did boxing become this sensitive? And since when did boxers like Conor Benn, get in your feeling every time that someone had something to say? You know, you're in the public domain. People pay to watch fights. So people have every right to have their opinions. The reason that Conor Benn is able to make all this money in the Eubank fight because of, you know, the media, pundits, analysts, YouTube, whatever. Everything comes together to make boxing the way it is for Conor Benn to make this much money. So how dare you get in front of someone that is having his opinion and threaten him and try and bully him and deploy some bully boy tactics because you're some tough guy. If you're some tough guy, Simon Jordan, Tony Bellew, you know, all these other fighters that have said things behind your back about failed drug test, you should pull up on them and have a go. You see what I'm saying? Like all these other fighters that will come on TalkSport or will come on other platforms and say things about you failing drugs test. And some fighters have even said that anyone that failed drugs test should be banned for life. You should pull up on them and put your hands in their faces and let's see how that goes. But you pull up on an old ex-fighter because you feel that you can flex your muscles. And that's what gets to me, because people can have their opinions. If you don't like it, you don't listen to it and you just go. That's the way the world works. And so threatening someone because they had the opinion is just weak and it's pathetic. And Conor Benn should be ashamed of himself for trying to intimidate and bully Duke McKenzie. Seriously, that is a deplorable behavior. I don't know if you guys have seen this video, and I'm interested to know what you guys think about this. Conor Benn, you know, threatening Duke McKenzie, putting his hands all in his face just to prove that he's some big macho guy. When so many people have said so many things, but I've never seen him pull up on people like that. It is disgraceful. It is unacceptable. It is deplorable. And Conor Benn should be ashamed of himself. Get in the comment section and let me know what you think about that. My name is Bright. This is the Bright Show Podcast Boxing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.